So coming back to the point of how you spoke about rhythm, repetition, and reverence. So whatever activities are being done with preschool children from the age of 3 to 6, explain that to me in a few points from a developmental standpoint. How does a 6-year-old ready to go to grade one look like? How do you know the child has developed physically well, and also from a emotional or cognitive standpoint?
So, first, I would like to share that in Waldorf preschool, you have 3-year-old child and 6-year-old child in same class. We have vertical groups in preschool, and if you see 3-year-old child, then they still have their round shoulders. Their neck is not so visible. So these are the physically you can make out looking at child and how old child is. And also, if you look at 3-year-old child playing, then they take toys and first bang or try to keep arrange those toys very well. This is normally the play. They will hardly ask other child to come and play with them. They want the toys for themselves. So always the first initiation for learning start from me. And then when they're playing and arranging toys, they suddenly realize, oh, it's nice that to have another person coming in and can play. So they from they go into they go into pretend play. So I'm a mother, you are a father, and this is a kitchen, and the setup whichever they have made, and so they invite another person in. So that development happened when child is like around 4 year old. So then there's a they have, there's a need of social interaction. And from 4 year old to 5 year old, now they are into they can articulate things very well. Now in the play they bring a lot of dialogues, same play, but now they are like as if if suppose they are playing ghar ghar or kitchen and all those things, and then so then mother will bring something, the father will say something, there are swiggy order happening, and all that whatever they have heard from outside, that comes into play. 5 year old they play very well. Now, the minute child is 6 year old, they are not interested in play. The best thing which we really, we teachers really feel very happy when 6 year old child starts saying that I am feeling bored. For parents, it's a concern. Oh my God, why my child is feeling bored? But we feel very happy because child is showing that now I am done with play. Now I'm ready for my learning. And also 6 year old child's play could be very chaotic. They can throw things, there are all this kind of again I mean you will see, I always term this as a they are pre-teenagers. They will bring that kind of behavior here. But advice to parents that bring humor in their life, instead of saying that why you're behaving this way, if you can bring humor, and then child feel light. And one more thing happened at this age of 6. Children, they plan a lot strategies, and like we will do this and that, but hardly they play. In fact, when teachers tell them like the playtime is over, they start crying, oh no, we have not played yet, and we haven't got to do what we have planned. So this is typically like 6 year old, and these are indication for teachers that oh, the children are now getting ready for grade 1. When you look at the age 6 child, they look like mini adults. When I say mini adults, their head proportion, their body and limbs proportion, and the torso is exactly, the proportion is just right. One thing which was there in olden times, and which we practice in border school, we ask a 6 year old child to do this. And this is a very beautiful indication. It shows that all three parts of a body, at this head, torso, and limbs, are now in a right proportion. And also physically, there's an arch in the foot. We see the spine as there's a beautiful S curve. And also there now the neck is visible, their waist is beautiful visible, and the limbs are really grown so well, and the proportion is just right. This is the physical development which we see in child in 6 year old. Emotionally, children are not cranky now, because now they can articulate very well. They are able to express themselves very well. There's an independent thinking that comes in. They also start sharing, I am feeling this way today and that way. And that is so nice that it is to see that the sentence formation is clear, the communication which they want to communicate to teacher is clear, and also they can also socialize very well with the friends. If there is a play, then there's a negotiation. Today we played this, maybe tomorrow we can play this, and that's how they are able to adjust. And we say, there's always this word called coordination. There's a beautiful coordination which happens among children. And also the questions are very different now. When 3-year-old child will ask, leaves are green, but now 6-year-old child will ask, why leaves are green, why this sun isn't during the daytime and moon at night. And they have these very logical questions, and minute you see the child has started asking this thinking questions, so this is also indication that child is now getting ready for grade 1. But again, many of us feel that, oh, my child is asking these logical questions, or then I need to have reasoning, I need to share this with my child, why sun is in during daytime and moon at night. And many times parents, they bring the globe and the sun, and they wanted to show logical questions, logical answer to their child. I would say children are in dreamy consciousness even at the age of 6. We don't need to bring that really that logical thinking into them. Yes, the questions are logical, yes, but the answer could be very simple, where child will find his or her own truth in these answers are more than enough. I would like to answer this question when we have this, when this our child is asking this question, like why sun during daytime and the moon at night. We just tell them that during daytime, whole day sun is shining, and now sun is tired, and so sun request moon, please can you come at night so I can go and rest. And this answer is more than enough for children. So when we see, and also physical development, the most important thing which is very visible in 6-year-old children, they start losing their front teeth, and that's the indication that now they are ready. If we look for physical readiness, we look for emotional readiness, and we also look, now there's a glimpse of their intelligence and intellectual development as well. uh, Also, often people think that, oh, बच्चा खेल रहा है, क्या सीख रहा है. One thing I want to share, that we all had wonderful childhood, and we there was a beautiful freedom to play. And during play, like for example, we all have, like, played on swing. जब हम झूले पे झूलते हैं, उस समय पर झूला एक एक पीछे एक फोर्स पर जाता है, फिर एग्जैक्टली उतने उस फोर्स पर आगे आ रहा है. एंड ये सेम चीज़ जब हम ग्रेड 9 और 10 में जब हम जाते हैं, एंड वहाँ पर फिजिक्स में वो लॉ सीखते हैं, जैसे पेंडुलम जो होता है, लाइक इट इज एक्चुअली ट्रेवल्स इक्वल डिस्टेंस. And if that experience is there in my body during from childhood, and if I that experience that as a concept, बच्चों को लगता है कि there is a truth in that concept. Imagine child, बच्चे ने कभी उसको experience ही नहीं किया अपनी बॉडी में, तो वो कभी उस truth से मीट ही नहीं होगा. So this is the beautiful thing which happens, like when you allow children to play, and how this play, this experience actually transform that into understanding their concepts in future.
Great. So, what parents on an average see as problem, naughtiness, chaos in play, boredom of a child, a big one in today's times, is seen as valuable traits for development, and then that's translated to their inner truth. It really makes me say, what is eureka to a child who has not experienced it, right? What is Archimedes' principle to a child who has not experienced eureka in their own selves? So, Bandana ma'am, take us through this journey of a child a little more from 7 to 14. how do you see it? How do you see them evolving developmentally, and how do you gauge it? And
So, I think I would like to begin from this idea that education has a purpose, and the purpose can be immediate but also distant. There is an immediate goal and there is a long-term goal, and it is a long-term goal which actually informs the current goals. But the current goals cannot be blind to the needs of the child whom you are educating. Which means that if I have to achieve something, I cannot neglect what the inner need of a child is. And therefore, the curriculum of a Waldorf education system is called age appropriate. And the age appropriateness comes from the aspect of measuring what is relatable for this child on this earth at this point of time. If you ever enter the body of a child, you will see this is a humongous place to live in. And for them, it can sometimes be scary and sometimes a huge mystery, which they are only every living day trying to solve. So, when we come into this picture, when we notice this and become aware of this question and state of feeling of a child, the lessons, the design of the day, everything addresses this part. So, when the child comes from the preschool, it has lived in immense abandon, immense freedom. The structure which is understood by the grown-ups is actually not understood by children. So the most beautiful thing that a preschooler feels is we don't study in the preschool. Okay? And then the boredom is, will you teach us something ever? And then they enter grade one. And they are just desperate and dying to be treated like equals. And they want now a table and a chair and books and crayons and a timetable and things to do like the grown ups do. And this is the time when we bring structure into the day. So there is a proper defined timetable. The first 2 hours are spent with working with the head, wherein new knowledge, new understanding, new concepts are developed because the children are at their healthiest, best in the morning. They are fresh from their sleep. Nutritionally, they have had their food and come in, and their minds are open to take new things. This is the time when we bring conceptual learning in the first 2 hours called the main lesson. Post this, they have a food break, after which they enter into the heart realm. Things like that they learn through their feeling spaces, like languages and other types of subjects, which are repetitive in nature. They go around throughout the year, the way any average timetable goes. And then we have lunch, and post which we come into a handwork, or what you can say the monotonous kind of things, which do not need too much of intellect integration. So we come into the crafts during those times. So there is a design in this as well. The first part of the day, what I said was main lesson, has its block systems. And in block systems, we integrate a pattern where we teach a certain subject for a long period of time of about 3 to 4 weeks in continuity. This allows immersion of a child in a certain way of thinking, a certain bent of mind. That's the way the child begins its day every day. And how does this contribute? So, even scientifically, it is proved that any activity to become habit needs at least about 21 days. So, when a child lives a certain style of thinking, let's say math, every day morning for 2 hours, the child is integrated into a mathematical way of thinking. We are actually developing its neural capacities, cerebral capacities to be a mathematical kind of thinker, and that becomes its habit body. Post that, we move to another science block, and then you have again a different kind of thinking capacity developed over a period of time. Then you might move into the history, where again the human side of the world is explored. The rights and wrong, morality, character, all those things are explored. So the design of the day in it is actually very scientifically put together to address the head, the heart, and the hands, that is the body of the child. Now, if we take it into the question of how does this bring an holistic and overall development of a child? Here is where I'm talking about the long term goals and the short term goals. The short term goals are calibrated to what is the ability already available to a child right now, and we work with that and strengthen and fortify that. We do not rush a child into adult capacities when it is not an adult yet.
Hmm.
And in this way, we preserve the health of the child, not only the physical health, which is naturally calibrated to what it should be doing at that age, but also emotional health. And that is where world of education completely bows down to the emotional world of a child. What is the feeling world of this child? How does the child feel about the world, about itself today? And how, when the child is coming out of preschool, its physiology is so well developed, its body is so well developed that it wants to capture the world, so it's almost like running all around the place. Now that is happening because the child's feeling world is very intrigued with this planet. I want to know more about this world. These stories are not enough for me. Give me more. That's how they got bored. But at that time, how do we teach the child to contain this energy? How do we bring the child's emotional world into a certain containment? Is the design of the second septennial, which is the heart septennial. It begins by addressing the grade 1 and 2 children's world, which is more like magic and mystery and angels and fairy tales. But by the time the child crosses over into the higher years, now the child is intrigued with human personalities. How do these common human beings achieve so much in the world? How would I be able to do that in my world? The possibilities are explored like that. And the journey from there to the second septennial end brings in gradually, first in concealed way, the sciences which come in as nature studies, but eventually unfolds as botany and the animal kingdom, so zoology, and all these things come in. Mathematics is growing at a rapid pace right now. So whatever was concealed as an understanding in the, which I was talking about as synthesis in the preschool years, begins to become analytical. Now their subjects are coming in, the child is meeting the same knowledge but in multiple different dimensions. Not only do we work with academic realms, the artistic realm, which is so deeply integrated into this curriculum, contributes as new facets of experiencing the same wisdom. So, if the teacher is working with the sciences, then how is some kind of art form, kind of contributing to that understanding? So, the curriculum is too rich to be captured right now in words for you, but all I can say is that we have again a small concept which will help probably the understanding. Human being, when it is born, if you compare it to any other animal who is being born, the animal is born with a full capacity of being who it is born to. A deer's baby is born and the mother has to kick it into standing, and the baby has to behave like a deer instantly. An elephant's baby will do the same. But when it comes to the human being, this baby who is born is actually a nothing. It doesn't know what its potential is. And that is the most beautiful thing. It is a lump of potential. And then the child grows metaphorically. It runs like a cheetah. It sings like a nightingale. It meets the world and keeps on meeting itself through this world. And what is the potential in this? The potential is there is no one way of being. You can be anything you want. This is the one unique trait and capacity of the human being. You look at any other animal or creature, it is the best version of itself. What is the best version of a human being? Isn't it still a mystery to you and me? Have I really reached my best version? Have you reached your best version? So it's too early to think that as an education system we can define what a child should be, right? Then the achievements of the future, well, I myself don't know what the future is going to be, just as much as you don't know what the future is going to be. Then what do we teach the children? We teach the children to remain pliable, to remain becoming at all times. But this becoming has to be along with all the skills which are to be developed in them. So our promise is keep alive every human capacity it was born with. The children, when they are born, know to sing, they know to dance, they can be joyful, they can be gay. Give them the crayons and pencils, they can draw, they can do all these things. They have an analytical mind, they can think. We work on all these realms, but we do not confine it to any. The age appropriateness promises good health. A good mind can only live in a good body, prosper in a good body. So we take care of the body very well. We take care of the feeling world very well. And when these two are addressed sufficiently, we start activating the thinking processes in an enigmatic way. It is beyond words to capture how holistically, multidimensionally, the high school children can think. They are a gift to universities who look at these children and wonder which education is taking care of this. It is not without reason that UNESCO has called World of Education as the world's healthiest education system. They activate these kind of education practices in war-ridden places to bring peace and good health to them. One one service, very good service we do to the industry is when children generally enter the the industry and start working, the the industry has to spend about 3 to 6 months training them to come into groups and work as groups because they have become so individuated. But in Waldorf systems, we keep this group quality still alive. So we do not, children who work or study through Waldorf education know how to work with people, know how to work in groups. They are not threatened by the presence of another. They are healthily meeting and giving their energy and sources into group exercises and practices. They are ready for the world and deliver what they need to in the world. So the long term and the short term, both of them are addressed through these programs.
That was really comprehensively addressed. So, what I hear from both of you, the impression that it gives me as a parent, that Waldorf education, uh, what we practice at Shishya, is basically something that addresses the physical, emotional, cognitive, spiritual aspects of a child in in an age appropriate manner, and it is done through tools like play, nature, art, and much more, right? So in some way, would it be fair to say that it optimizes the natural intelligence of a child and awakens it to its full potential?
Absolutely.
And then the $1,000,000 question, but we are living in the age of artificial intelligence where knowledge is at our fingertips, and everything the world thought were capacities for human beings to develop are now being developed by automated systems. So, where do we stand in terms of the children being able to meet this technology led world when they are being raised and taught in this kind of a system, which is very different from the way the world outside today is? And also, a specific discussion would be helpful on how is technology seen in Waldorf schools and how is it, whether it's used in the classrooms.
This is a very interesting question because it always amuses me, this word technology. So it is assumed that Waldorf schools are less on technology, right? They don't integrate technology. But really, I want to debunk this myth. For that, I need to begin with so let me make a bold statement here. And the statement is it is only in Waldorf education that we use technology in its truest sense and abundantly. Right from, let's say, the preschool years. Yeah. Now, if I have intrigued you enough, then let me go forward. If you go to Google and you search for the meaning of the word technology, it states, the first statement of Wikipedia is technology is applying concepts to solve daily practical issues. Okay? And then it says, which can be reproducible in nature. Now, the daily practical issues could be as simple as, oh my god, I'm cooking food and the vessel is hot. how do I grab it, hold it, bring it down, and somebody puts together a kind of a tong. Even this is technology, right? So, technology really is about day to day life. We have kind of bracketed digital technology with the idea of technology. Now, your question of artificial intelligence, digital technology. All of this, let me talk about the genesis of artificial intelligence. Isn't it the human beings who put together programs, put together the idea of the body of knowledge which we call artificial intelligence? So, wasn't it sprung out of human intelligence? And it became a standard body of learning applications, which today we call artificial intelligence. But if we do not look at the root of it, then we are failing our future. The root is human intelligence. And human intelligence began when humans started to look at a stone and think, how can I work with this? So it crafted a tool out of it, technology. It looked at fire and thought, how do I work with fire? Technology. What I'm trying to reach here is when we integrate crafts into the system of learning for the child and we enliven every single part of the body of the child so that it works with that craft, we are firing the intelligence of the child which lives in the mind as how something should be done, what is the process, and process is what artificial intelligence is encashing on. It needs an outcome. It is defining the process out of an existing body of knowledge. But if the process is our capacity, then whether we are working with artificial intelligence or in a forest, both will need this procedural thinking. Technology should be serving this space in the human being. And so, when we work with the crafts, no matter what kind of craft, whether it's a literary craft, the performing crafts, whether we are talking with visual arts, we are talking about arts that we do with our hands like knitting, stitching, embroidery, crafts, woodwork, any kind of crafting, all of this is about working with some kind of a raw material, making it pass through a process, and then eventually coming to a finished product. If this is digested, understood, the thinking abilities of working with the material science behind it, and how my capacities, tools can transform that raw material into something as a finished product which is serving humanity, I think this is the only way intelligence can be preserved, enhanced, and the future of the world can be more creative. The way we are going with the idea of artificial intelligence and digital technology, I perceive the world becoming a little lopsided. We are ignoring other intelligences. But in a world of school, we do not do this. Like I was saying, we work with the becoming of a human being so that no matter where this adult goes and parks itself, is pegged into with one's life journey, it remains productive there. It remains transformative. It remains as an answer to the questions which are living in that environment. And the designing of an answer is the technology. The designing of an answer is procedural in nature. And therefore, I think our children who go through the world of education, are beyond the questions that the modern times, the current times are asking.
What I receive here is that we are working fundamentally on the technology of building a capacity in the child that are making them future ready, a future that is unknown to all of us, right? So, yeah, so if I may ask here, I was about to come to you. Give me a specific example on, in help me understand this. So let's say, like in today's world, young children are handed over mobiles primarily for engagement. Let's say adults have busy lives and the child must sit at one place, and therefore they are given that because otherwise the adult is unable to do that task, or the child is not finishing a meal, therefore food is being put into the mouth of the child while the child is watching videos. What's happening here to the child?
Okay, so when children are exposed to technology in young years, sorry, if children are exposed to screen time in early years, what happens that children are not using their senses in full potential. Like imagine if there's a screen in front of me and mother is feeding child food. Child is the whole engagement is there in front of the screen, but what I am eating, is it sour, is it sweet, or is it what taste it is, child is not even understanding that, it's just gulping. And when you are always engaged there and not able to understand your sensory uh, senses are not active, then it's like you're bypassing everything. So when you bypass everything, there are no experiences. And this child who is going to be all the time in front of screen and not experiencing sense of how, what do you call mud and water or all these senses, child is not developing actual meaning of world around him. Child will never understand how the water feels like, how the mud feels like, how like sticky when child touches something which is very sticky, how that feels like. And child, when you introduce this vocabulary to children, they will not understand the real meaning of that vocabulary, because my body never got that experience of through senses. So whatever I'm learning, it's like a kind of a rote learning, and rote learning is nothing but a short term memory. I know it for a time being, I use it, and after that it's gone. So see, when in the early years, the education used to be through oral learning. Imagine the kind of memory we had. And today, when there are screens and children are learning through screens, and look at the learning and the kind of memory we have, we are actually living in a very short term memory world today. So this is one of the drawback of early use of screen time for children.